Guys, how excited are you for this Jam Jones Notorious Jones Jr. rematch? I think I am. I don't know. It was one of the best fights I've ever seen when it happened. I don't know if I want it now more than I do want Ozzy Divine versus Jam and Dodo versus Notorious. I feel like that's the match I've always wanted. Those are two fights I've always wanted to see. I don't mind this one though. I mean, you have a score to settle. Jones has no one else to face to defend the IBF title, and I think Raimondo wants to keep. And I think Ozzy and Jam don't want to fight each other. So this feels like the thing that you know this fight's gonna happen. Probably gonna be the best fight in the weekend, in my opinion. I'm gonna be tuning in for this one easily. Let's break down the fight real quick. You got Jam Jones, one of the best late fighters ever. He's got a 100% KO percentage, but don't take that as a guy who's just an early knockout artist. This guy waits for these guy. This guy analyzes you mid-fight, and he did it against Notorious Jones during the first fight, where Notorious Jones was beating him down. I thought it was gonna be a one-sided fight. He came back, and he won by big health gap. Now, obviously, the health gap isn't gonna be a thing in this fight. It's gonna be different tools, but obviously that's got to play a factor. Jam did it against Mizzy Paul. He was still winning rounds and he was trying to figure out what he was going to do. He adjusted. And he just dominated Kenny Young. Jam Jones has been on a trajectory to be the greatest middleweight of all time. I think that's his goal. It's always been his goal when it comes to MMA. It's his goal now. He's doing a great. He's making a great case. And I was ready to. I've flipped back and forth for these past few weeks on whether or not I think Jam is better or whether or not I think Ozzy is better. I think I flipped this more in for Ozzy. I think Ozzy still is the best middleweight in the world. Jam is not very far off, though. I mean, the competition he's faced. Ozzy's had incredible performances. The competition can be a little bit questioned, but then again, it's Ozzy, goddammit. I mean, he's fought some incredible fighters, and now you got James Jones in the mix. He's a showman, obviously. I mean, the guy has given us some of the most spectacular things I've ever seen. But you also have to consider the fact that these two don't want to fight each other. How are we going to determine who the best in the world is? Well, you have to do it by competition, right? Until you get the two best to face each other, there is nothing you can do to make this argument unless you base it off of competition. I guarantee you at some point, no matter how much they say they don't want to fight, they will fight. That is something that, in my opinion, will happen. Now let's get to Notorious Jones Jr. This is the biggest fight of his career. He needs this fight. I think he needs this fight more than Jam needs this fight. It'd be terrible if Jam lost this, but he can come back in the trilogy and try to beat him then. But this fight means so much for Notorious Jones Jr. Because we could be looking at a scenario where he loses, but he's going to beat everyone else, right? I think he can beat everyone else. I think he can beat Dax. I think he can beat Kenny. I think he can beat pretty much anyone. But if he loses the Jam, that just tells me that you got a guy who's going to be at the gate trying to get back to Jam Jones. Is that true? I have no idea. I think Notorious Jones Jr., I would say, could be the favorite, or it could be Jam. I don't know how the odds makers will put on that, but usually they favor the guy who won the first fight. And considering the fact that fight was not too long ago, they wouldn't be they wouldn't be that wrong. However, don't miss the point that Notorious Jones Jr. is a completely different fighter than he was last time, despite the fact that it was not that much of time removed. Guys, Notorious Jones Jr. is just a bad man. He is so good with that. He's got the best jab in the sport today. He is one of the most experienced fighters in the sport. He's fought 11 times. That's as much as Cruzaro has been fighting. He's fought more than Bugatti. This guy has been fighting for a very long time, and yet he's still not a champion. He was an IBF champion. No longer is. What I am telling you guys right now is that Notorious Jr., in my opinion, is the best non-champion in the world who's fighting right now. I will include every name in the heavyweight division in that top 5. He's better than SSI. I think he's better than a champion or two. I won't say who. Guys, Notorious Jones Jr. This guy can become a champion that went any weight class, in my opinion. He just hasn't yet. Could he be? And if he loses to Jam Jones tonight, you can absolutely make the case that he can't be a champion because the champions are just too high above him, which means these champions are on a different level than anyone else. I think that's what the fight's going to prove tonight. I think Notorious Jones can definitely beat Jam Jones. I think it could go either way. I think late, this was what Ray said. I think, and I also think this. I think Jam Jones can win by UD or late knockout. He didn't say that. He just said UD. And Notorious Jones Jr. can win by late KO. I think he got a decision because of that ridiculous jab that he can score so many points with. But both guys have a legitimate shot to win. This is a pick'em fight. This is very much a pick'em fight. And after this fight, and let's say someone dominates the other, don't tell me, well, you were wrong about that because that fight was not even close. Well, one guy's going to have a good night, one guy's going to have an off night, and that's going to be the definite factor. But if both guys have a great night, it is going to be a war. If both guys fight to their best, this will be a very close fight. I think both will. I think Notorious Jones Jr. has wanted this fight for such a long time. I think Jam Jones has wanted this rematch. He wants to prove he's the best. So, and the poster's right behind me, obviously. This is going to be one of the most anticipated fights of my commentating career. I cannot wait for this fight. So, let's think about it for a second. Who do you guys got winning? This is an all-important title fight, guys. I mean, the middleweight... I realized this yesterday. And don't get me wrong. I think the middleweights have been really the only ones fighting, really. They were the only active ones. We had a interim welterweight title fight scheduled between SSI and I think Iron Drake. I don't know. I'm not going to look it up right now. That fight never happened. Instead, we got an expedition fight. And then our interim heavyweight title fight was canceled. So, this brings up the question, oh my god. The middleweights have been more active than any other division so far. They've main evented the last 2 pay-per-views, guys. And the second was obviously unintentional. But the middleweights have been doing all the work. All I've been talking about is middleweights. I talked about, obviously, the fight night a few hours ago. But, guys, the middleweights have been doing more work ever since we got off the break. The middleweights have been doing more work than any other weight class. You know how crazy that is. That is truly crazy. Because remember, when Yagami and Kowski was fighting, we were doubting on who could actually fight the dude because he was dominating. But when he left, everyone came along. Everybody. We got new champions by RBC 10. Ever since then, they've been doing more work than any other weight class. The once thought to be worst division is now by far the best division in the sport, in the RBC. I can name so many contenders out there who could definitely win the title. Let's start with Dax, Mizzy, Kenny Young, Dodo, who's a champion right now. Notorious Jones Jr., Harry Golovkin, the list goes on, guys. And you have 3 top-heavy champions who are pound-for-pound contenders. And I think Ozzy and Jim are up there. That is a debate to make. It is the most healthy weight class in the sport. You don't have an undisputed champion. And you have 2 guys who have a case to be the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Ozzy has it by the fact that he has been dominating every fight he's been in. Jam Jones has it by level of competition and the fact that he is an unfazed warrior. And there's Notorious Jones Jr. right up in that mix. He's fought with the best. He's been offered the best. And now this fight is happening. Guys, the middleweights have been doing all the work. I'm going to say it in the thumbnail. I'm going to say it in the title of this video. This fight means a lot because this means the middleweight division has been the most active division in the game right now. I think NJJ and Jam have fought more fights. They fought those 2 in Aussie have been more active than anyone in any other weight class. The middleweights are doing all the heavy lifting, guys. That's crazy to me because the 2 most storied divisions in RBC have been welterweight because of Cruzaro and Khalid, And heavyweight because of Bugatti, Fishy, and Kenny Young, and many other who have come before. Why is middleweight now just dominant? You can say it's because of no shows. I say it's because this is the best division in the sport. I don't mind it, guys. What do you guys think? Do you think this is right? Do you think, I'm going to leave you with this question. Should the middleweight division be carrying combat, the RBC? Or do you think we need to be more active in welterweight and heavyweight? Or do you not mind this?